Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the How Did You Learn to Do That podcast. Thank you so much for all the love and support over the last couple of months. And I'm so excited to get started on a whole new chapter and a whole list of guests that are so amazing and so exciting. And I'm excited to offer also some workshops coming up in the fall. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you subscribe to our newsletter list so you'll be the first to know. And in the meantime, I do still have my journaling guide up, and I do have the challenge email. So if you want to start committing to yourself and start creating some connections with yourself and understanding what your goals are in life and actually what that life is that you wish existed for you and how to actually get there, make sure you sign up to my newsletter list and you'll start getting those emails to start doing that work before the workshops. And then I'm excited to have those workshops for you, to get to know you, to connect with you, and to learn more about what you need and how I could support you and guide you in that. So today I actually have an amazing guest. His name is Sam, and I'll have him come on shortly, but he's an amazing motivational speaker, and I'm so excited for you to hear his story. He's so inspiring. He's got so much going on for himself, and I'm just so excited to have him join me today, and it's such an honor to have him here. I've been following him actually for a couple of years. He teaches at Simon Fraser University, where I did my undergrad, and so I've seen him grow. I've seen his motivational speeches, and I'm just so excited to have him here and to have you hear how inspiring he is and to be touched by him, because he exudes so much passion, so much love, so much encouragement for you. And I'm so excited for you guys to listen to this one. So stay tuned. Make sure that you like and subscribe to us on YouTube, as well as follow us on all our social media platforms and like us on our social media accounts as well. And share with all your family and your friends and let them know about the How Did You Learn to Do That podcast so that they can tune in, so they can hear these inspiring stories and they can get started on the journey to their purpose in life. Okay, so stay tuned. Hi, everyone. So I'd like to welcome Sam. So Sam is a professional who has created a personal journey as a coach, a speaker, an author, a workshop facilitator, an educator, and an entrepreneur. Over the last 25 years, he has worked with over 45 nonprofit organizations, and as a result, received the Canadian Sovereign Medal for Volunteers and the Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal from the Governor General of Canada. He has spent many years in academic administration and teaching at post-secondary institutions, and has supported individuals and organizations through keynote addresses and workshops. Whether it is at academic institutions, organizations, or nonprofits, Sam has developed engaging content as an accomplished speaker and TEDx presenter. This has led him to mentor and coach hundreds of young people in life and career. Sam has authored 2 books. One is about personal storytelling, and his recent book is about his travel adventure to India to seek his ancestral roots with just a photograph and very little else, and in the process found himself. The book is called Lost and Found: Seeking the Past and Finding Myself. Sam has his Master of Arts in Leadership Studies, as well as his Higher Education Teaching Certificate from Harvard University, Life Coaching Certificate from Cambridge University, and Adult Education Certification from Vancouver Community College. The quote that he lives by is that everyone's life is an autobiography. Make yours worth reading. So thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast, Sam. We're so excited to have you here and to share your inspirational story and journey. And I just, have been following you for several years, and my cousin actually is one of your mentees. So she, I know, has committed to herself and she's created something for herself, and she's so passionate about it. So every time I would ask her, how did you learn to do this? She always referenced her mentors, of which you were one of the big inspirations in her life. So I'm so excited for you to be here and share your story. And I'd love to start by asking you what set you on this journey.
Great. Well, first off, just thank you for this opportunity to share, because that's something that I really do appreciate, is the value of sharing. And the word sharing is really important. Storytelling is one directional. It's me telling. But story sharing is where we both share back and forth.
Mhm.
But really, what set me off on this journey is actually very much like everybody else. My life was, you know, heading in a direction, but I had no control over it and no focus, no purpose, no direction, but just trying to grab whatever's around me to try to make sense of the world. I was trying to think about what I want to do, and you find the most easiest and comfortable things. So when I was in university, the whole idea behind it is you're on a pathway, rhythm, but where is it guiding you? I had no idea. Also in university, I was awkward, shy, and quiet. A little bit different than where I am now in life. But what I appreciated is the fact that, I've had many obstacles along the way. And it brings back a quote that I've posted on my Instagram that obstacles are the necessary roadblocks on my road to success. In other words, I feared them in the beginning. I was worried about my roadblocks or these obstacles, when in fact, what I really should have done was embrace them because they really help guide me to who I am today. The thing that I would say is the fact that, when I was in university, there was this pathway and journey that I was on. I had a degree in business and political science, and this whole idea of like what a great combination. Like, who's lucky to get me? Because with business and political science, like that's a great combination. And I sat at graduation, and I told myself when I got up to go get my degree, I walked across the stage, shook the hands of the dignitaries. But all of a sudden, as I walked off the stage, this transition piece happened because I was no longer part of that academic institution any longer. I now transitioned the threshold, and this giant virtual door seemed to slam behind me. And I went to grab the handle, but there was no handle because everything behind that door is what I left behind: the classes, my friends, the whole aspect of university life, which I had become so comfortable with. After I went and sat down, I thought, well, I guess I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do, which is apply for jobs. So here I am. Back then, this is how old I am. There was no internet, there was no email. You actually had to typewrite a letter, mail it, or hand deliver it. So I remember I sent out about 10 letters to, the most common types of organizations saying, I'm looking forward to applying for a job and, hopefully get a chance to speak about my experiences, but I realized my experiences were limited. So I did about 10 of them and I sat back. Well, about 2 weeks later, a note arrived or a letter arrived. Back then, they used to write letters. It said, congratulations on graduating, but you know what? We don't have a job for you. I thought, you know what? That's okay. I still have, 9, 10, 11 letters out there. Somebody's lucky to get me. Well, the next day, another letter arrived saying, we're not sure what job you're looking for, but good luck in your search. And I thought, okay, I'm going to send out 3 more letters. But in the process, letters kept coming back the more I sent out. Well, eventually, my realization was that I started getting this. This is a collection of my letters. These are all my rejection letters. And there's about 83 rejection letters here. 83 times that I was rejected saying, you don't know who you are, we don't have a job for you, good luck, but somewhere else. And I will admit that every single letter was a nail in my coffin of self-confidence because here you're prescribed this pathway and journey to say, well, get that degree and go out and do great things. I was ill prepared. The interesting thing, though, is I finally did get a job. And my first job, and I was like, okay, was mopping floors and emptying rubbish bins in a hospital as a janitor. But instead of looking at that as a negative situation, I embraced it. And there were 3 valuable life lessons that I learned from being a janitor in a hospital as my first job. The first lesson was my father said, I don't care what you do, you make sure you do the best job possible because your reputation is on the line. And I'll tell you that no floor was cleaner than at the end of my shift. And, the rubbish bins were all emptied out every night. Second valuable lesson. There were times I would get on the elevator with nurses, doctors, and administrators, and I would be ignored because you're a janitor. We have nothing in common. So I know what that feels like. So this is why I talk to everybody. I don't care who they are. I
Mm-hmm.
don't care if they're a celebrity. I don't care if they're just entering university or high school. You want to talk to me? I'm going to sit down and talk to you because I know what that feels like. And the third valuable lesson is I could have looked at this from a very negative standpoint and saying, I have a degree on my wall and I should be doing something else because that's what the noise around me said is you wasted your time. But instead I said, what am I going to learn by being a janitor that's going to carry me forward? So in any situation, the third lesson was anything we do, we must reflect and learn from those experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So think about it this way. If I could pull 3 valuable life lessons from being a janitor, what lessons can somebody pull from where they are in life?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's important is I reflect back on these rejection letters now. And I think to myself 2 things. Number one, if one of those letters would have materialized, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today. My life would have gone in a different trajectory.
Mm-hmm.
I now embrace those letters because what I've gotten to do, finding my purpose in life, would never have materialized. And the second thing is that I now reflect on all those letters. Many of those companies no longer exist, but I still do. I outlasted those companies. So the fact is that we are very resilient no matter how difficult the struggle, no matter how challenging it is, no matter how many obstacles are put in front of you, you are going to persevere, but you must go forward in the most authentic, in the most promising way, and understand you're not doing this by yourself. Don't hesitate to pull what I call the champions and enablers. Those individuals who are there to support you, not tell you what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And the last thing I will share with you is the reason why these letters happen and why I'm on such a crusade of mentoring and coaching hundreds of young people and starting a nonprofit for that reason is the fact that I don't want people to have to go through what I went through. And my realization is those letters had told me I was doing it all wrong because I was focused on what I'm going to do and I never focused on who I was. There's a shift and a need in society to really understand who are you over what you're going to do because the who is going to guide you to what you're going to do.
Yeah, I think that is definitely resonates with me very truly. I've from the time I graduated university to my career, it's been about 7 years now, and now I'm kind of at that point where I need to assess what's my next step, where do I want to go, and I was so lucky that I had the last from April. Before April, I had 18 months, off of work, raising my daughter. And I really had that time to slow down over a long period of time. And, a lot of people have this time right now with COVID-19, having to slow down, and it really shifts their day-to-day work. And so what I got to do in those 18 months is do that assessment, connect with myself and assess, who am I? What brings me joy? What do I want in life? And I think the work I did before, and Michelle Obama says this too in her book, in her autobiography, she said that, you become a box checker based on what your parents or society or what you think is expected of you. And that's exactly what I did. I just, my family from a young age said, you have to have a master's degree because we're refugees from Afghanistan. And my family, they all have master's degrees or PhDs. But unfortunately, with being refugees, none of that education was recognized here. So they had to start from scratch, and they couldn't get their PhDs again. But they, did other careers. But so for them, it was very important that I did a master's degree. So that's exactly what I did. I got my bachelor's degree, I got my master's degree, and I got a job in the government because that's what my family said is what I needed to do. But once I got there, I did a lot of that. I did the exact same thing like you did. I had a whole Excel file. We do, obviously, in my generation now, we don't do letters, but I had an Excel file of companies that I applied for, and there was hundreds. But everybody said you're not qualified and whatnot, and so it does hurt. But taking one job, or the job that it was, I actually only had one job call me back for an interview right out of university, and they the pay was not that much different from my pay working at a bookstore. But I said, you know what, I'm going to do it because it's going to give me something to look forward to, something to build upon. And I just want to experience it. And from that, it's kind of, I looked at it from the building blocks perspective. But yeah, once I did get to that goal and I achieved that goal, I still felt unfulfilled. I still felt, okay, I have a job. It's in management. I'm working at a provincial government health authority. I feel like I should be super happy at my age doing this, but I just was not happy. And I just was so fortunate to have that time to reflect and really think about what I wanted to do and who I was. And I think that, I realized, and I was reading this recently, like over when I was connecting with myself, I read it as well, that you sometimes know what your actual purpose in life is, or where you want to go, or who you as a person are, what you're supposed to do. You know that when you're a child, but we move away from that because of these expectations. And for me, being a child, I always loved broadcast. I loved Oprah was, my hero at that time. And I just loved being in front of people to share stories of people, which once I connected back with myself, I realized, this podcast, this platform, this is where my purpose is. This is what I need to do in order to share stories and share stories of people like you that are so inspiring. And, I love what you had to say about taking learnings from every experience and not looking at it as, a failure, or looking at it as, you need to do something better, because you need to just take the time to just reflect on what you do and do the best that you can. And once you connect with yourself, I feel like things start rolling along for you.
No, and I think added to that is the how. Because I think people are like, well, that's great that, you've got that journey and you've had the journey and the realization and all of that, but how can that happen to me? And I wrote a blog post that said, had to do, have to do, want to do. The reality is the first job out of university, corporate culture, pay, benefits, none of this is going to matter because you just need a job. You need to get something to nail down experiences. 5 to 10 years later, now you're having these conversations of what do I have to do to get to my want to do. But then the other side of it is what we call continuance commitment, which is there's a mortgage, there may be kids, there may be expenses, and everything is comfortable, but it doesn't satisfy you. It satisfies the financial, practical side, but it doesn't satisfy the other side of you. And the how you figure this out, which came to me a while back, is, and I think this was a turning point for me, was instead of focusing on what I'm going to do, I started saying, okay, wait. What's important to me? And I realized that there were 5 things that were important in my life that I'm not willing to compromise. Now, those have shifted and changed over time because we all change over time.
Mm-hmm.
But even right now, the 5 things that guide and support me in life: servant leadership, story sharing, activator igniter, champion enabler, community do-gooder. I'm working on about 10 projects right now, but all 10, actually, I just picked up one more, so 11, hit 5 out of 5. It's because I now have something to balance it against. So when an opportunity emerges or something comes up, does it line up with those 5 things? Now, people can do this at any stage in their life. In the class that I teach right now at SFU's BD School of Business in organizational behavior, I make every single one of my students write a personal statement in week 2 and in week 11. Because the idea is, instead of telling me what you're going to do in the future, tell me who you are. And they tell me how hard this is. So the five core elements piece is something I've established. And when I mentor and coach people, that's one of the first things I will ask them is, what are the five things that guide and direct you in life? Now, don't worry about picking the right five words because these are going to change. Because I think people are sometimes so focused on, am I going to get the right words? But you have to have five. And from that, then maybe a year later, 6 months later, you suddenly realize, well, wait, I'm going to substitute this word. Like in the past, leadership was one of my five, but I thought leadership is too broad. Student development was another one of my five, but that was too narrow. So that's where I went down servant leadership because that's the type of leadership I embody and that I practice.
Mm-hmm.
So that's much more narrower, but not infinitely narrow. Student development, it's too narrow because I mentor and coach mainly post-secondary institution young professionals, but even organizations and senior executives. So it was too narrow. So then I thought, okay, champion enabler. That's what I do is I help people discover their pathway. So I think the five core elements for your listeners is a really great way to establish a base. And even if you don't hit 5 out of 5 where you are in life, let's say you hit 2 out of 5 where you are in life, but then think, what am I missing? Can I institute that at work? And if you can't, can I institute that outside of work to satisfy? So it doesn't have to be 5 out of 5 right in that job, but maybe a not for profit that you can incorporate some of those things that satisfy you as a whole. And if any of that stuff doesn't, you really have to think long and hard that maybe it's time for a change.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. I've actually had somebody earlier on in my career ask me that in an interview, like, who are you? And obviously you start talking about your degree and what your career and what you've done, jobs and stuff. And then, she stopped me and was like, no, I'm asking just about you. Who are you? And it stumped me, because you don't, on your resume, you talk about you as a professional, but there's hardly a time where you talk about yourself as a person, or you start creating that, like you said, the five elements.
Elements.
Yeah, of the four elements of who you are and what's important to you. And I think that I just did that recently, doing my own mission statement for me as a person and what are my non-negotiables. And I've created five, and it's, fitness, finances, family, friends, and faith. And those are my five. And I just heard that from somebody else recently too. And I just feel like that is something that we all need to have, because that gives us an opportunity to move forward. And I had a guest on my podcast named I Am Stearns, and he talks about his why statement helping him make decisions. And it tells him, he has to, like you said, you have to check back. Does it meet these? And if it does, then yes, I will proceed with this. But if it doesn't, you say no. And I think that's where some people can get stuck in that cycle of saying yes to everything for opportunity or for growth, but realizing that it actually takes away more from them than it gives, or that they're moving away from their true why and their values and their elements versus nourishing it.
And I've interviewed numerous young people, and it goes back to your point, because when I've asked them, tell me about yourself, the first thing, without a doubt, they're going to do is look up to the ceiling, because you know what, that's where the answers are. And they look up and they say, well, I'm a hard worker, I work well with people, I'm great with technology. Like, they'll give me the standard, but so is everybody else before you told me the exact same thing. So I want to change that up, and then, but what is it that makes you unique, and what's your differentiator?
Mm-hmm.
That's the best part.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's amazing. So that gets me to ask you, what's your differentiator? I would really be interested to know.
Yeah. So I always reflect back on those five core elements: the servant leadership, story sharing, activator, igniter, champion enabler, community do-gooder, because my realization is those five things sort of become the five things that drive me into what I should be doing. I think that so often in society we say, well, what are you passionate about? And I always say it's okay to talk about passion, but purpose is the flame. Purpose is what sustains. Passion is the igniter. You can't sustain passion. But if you can nail down the 5 things that guide and direct you, as I suggested, as an example, and what that helps you realize is that's your purpose. So I will tell you, for probably the last 25 years, I haven't had a job or career. I've had fulfillment because I've been able to have this purpose in life. And my purpose really is based on those 5 core elements. It guides and supports me because, as mentioned, I'm a storyteller, speaker, educator, uh, community do-gooder, writer, and author. But all of these things guide me in a direction that my purpose is to help people, not young people, not old people, organizations, but to help people be the best version of themselves. I am not there to tell them what to do. I am there to support what they need to do. Oftentimes with mentorship and coaching, because I do anywhere from 3 to 8 mentorship conversations a week. It's been about 5,000 over the last 20 plus years. And I always say people come to me, and I call myself the difficult monk because they come to me thinking I sit on top of a mountain with an orange saffron robe. I've got a bit of a beard, but they think of this flowing beard, orange saffron robe. You're going to come to me, and I'm going to tell you the answer to life. Well, I'm the difficult monk. All I do is I ask questions because the monk you're looking for is within yourself. And my job is to ask those questions to help you realize your purpose in life. I'm not going to tell you what it is, and it's interesting because people just are like, but it would be so much easier if you just told me what I should do. And I'm like, yeah, it would be, but that's what I'm telling you to do would be what I would want to do. And that doesn't suit you. So let's figure out what's important to you. And it's interesting because I think we talked about it a little bit is we're used to what I call the noise around us. The noise around us, society is telling us what to do, people around us telling us what to do and how it should be. And there's the cultural aspect and societal, when in fact there's all this noise, but what's the voice within telling us? And I say that the horizon that you are going to is not your horizon until you figure out the horizon within. Because once you know the horizon within, then you'll be able to get to this horizon beyond.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And actually the 5, when I was doing this work on myself, and I've been doing this for as long as I can remember as a young child, I would always ask, what do I want to do in life? And I would look at people the same age as me. And obviously at that time there was no, I'm not that old, but at that time there really was no internet. Like Facebook started when I graduated high school. So I was honored to have this time when I was a child where I didn't have to worry about Instagram and Facebook and all that. And I could just live my life authentically. And, when I would flip these magazines and I'd see these children or these young people that were around my age that were music stars or, models or those kinds of, or authors, those kinds of role models that were in these magazines as a child. I used to look at that and think, okay, so they've achieved this dream where they get to be a singer. So how can I do that? And I would, sit in my room and start strategizing how I could do that. And then, but every time I did that, at the top was, like I said, okay, you can only do that after you finish your master's degree because that's what your grandpa wants. And so now that I'm at that, so when I spent this time over the last 18 months reflecting, I pulled out all of those journals and I thought about, okay, what did I want to do as a child? And I realized this is what I love to do. And I actually do this, sharing stories or asking questions, like you said. I share that throughout my life. And until I was able, like you said, frame it. And somebody actually asked me these questions when I was figuring out what my purpose was. And until I got those questions that I really didn't think about, I wasn't able to frame it in the way to know and truly understand what I am supposed to be doing in life. and actually, it was Sunny Lenarduzzi. She's, a coach for business marketing. She shared a story about the 5 F's of her family, which I mentioned earlier: faith, finances, family, friends, and fitness. And at the time when I discovered, okay, my purpose in life is to share stories and be a storyteller and bring inspiration to people. Then I heard her 5 non-negotiables for life, and I thought to myself, I need, like you, I need elements to help me in living my purpose in life, because I need something that allows me to live that purpose, and if I don't take care of my fitness and my health, if I don't take care of my finances, then, like you said, I'll be stuck in a cycle of being in a position just to fulfill these obligations of financial responsibility. If I don't pay attention to my emotional and spiritual and mental health, then I won't be able to pursue that. And that kind of goes with all of that. So I've adopted those 5 elements from her, and I've made sure that I continue every single day to honor and nourish those 5 in order to continue to live this purpose of my life. And I think that resonates a lot with me, with what you've said, and especially in spending time to connect with yourself and learn about yourself, like you said. I think that really then moves the needle and takes you where you need to go.
Well, and to your point, it's not a matter of holding a compass. I always say you are the needle, and you have to go in the direction that it's taking you. But you're the needle. It's not that you're the compass.
Yeah.
You're not holding a compass. You're the needle, and that'll guide you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautifully said.
And so I'd love to ask you, so on this trajectory and this journey, at what point in your life, and also how did you learn that this is what you wanted to do with your life, and that, how did you get to your purpose, and how did you start living that purpose?
Yeah. Actually, very much like the usual noise was guiding me the corporate route. And I think it was about the age of 35 when I broke through this. And it was this unique sentiment and situation. I mean, part of it is I was working in a corporate job. At the 5 year mark, I thought, well, I could do this job, but it's really not me. Something was eating, going like, I can do it, but there's something got to be more than that. And I wound up thinking that either I want to go into road safety or human resources based on where I was, which was ICBC. And those are 2 areas. But what was interesting is people around me said, well, you're not going to get in because they hire specialized people for road safety, and you don't have any experience in that whatsoever. And I said, yeah, well, that's true. Well, the long and short of it is, from a point of 0 and no experience, but activating that, where I wanted to try it out. And it started by me calling the guy in my road safety coordinator in North Vancouver to basically say, well, I've heard about this road safety. And he said, well, you know what? I do this myself. I've got an event on a Tuesday in a park. Why don't you come out and help me out? And I thought, perfect. So I went and helped him out. Well, eventually that sparked that passion, that interest. But now I started wanting more of this. But now how do I activate it? And for about a year and a half, I was volunteering my time, the heavy lifting, the hard work. The noise around me said everybody is just using you because you just keep saying yes to it. You're not going to get in. But about a year and a half of all this heavy lifting and hard work but I was really enjoying it. I got the job in road safety, and everybody was like, wait, how did you do that? They don't hire people from within. It's always outside. And then all of a sudden, it opened the gate to other people to say, well, I want to be a part of this. So you blazed a trail. Now, I had been in that road safety job now 6.5 years. So 13 years in the corporate world. But the thing is, those 6.5 years of road safety, I loved. It really made it interesting. It was unique. I could be authentic. I could be organic in what I wanted to do. But the corporation was top heavy. And what they wanted was 850 people out of 6,000 to leave. Now, here's the thing. I love my job. And people were like, Sam, of all people, you're the guy that should stay. You love your job, great wages, great benefits, pension, government job, stability, and all of that together. And if you leave, you don't have a job. You're giving everything up. for something that doesn't exist. But there were two words that were really important to me. And think of it this way here, I've got my computer screen up, and I've got my cursor down here and a dialog box that initiates the fact that you're leaving the company.
Mm-hmm.
I sat there and there were two words that resonated with me. The first word was comfort. 6.5 years of doing something I thoroughly loved, I found that I stopped growing as an individual. It was still good and interesting and everything, but I got sort of bored with it.
Mm-hmm.
The second word was uncertainty. By leaving, there's uncertainty because I don't have a job if I leave. There's uncertainty if I stay because with 850 people out of 6,000, you know things are going to change and then they may move me wherever they want. I control my uncertainty. Nobody else does. And as a result of that, I wound up pressing the button and leaving. And all of a sudden, every single person, 100% of the people around me, family members, friends, coworkers, everybody said you've just made the biggest mistake of your life. You've just given up what everybody wants. Well, about it, and so I walked to the edge of the cliff. And the interesting thing is, there were all this noise saying you made the biggest mistake, but there were whispers of, if you survive, I'm going to do this. Well, for the first month, I just thought, let me enjoy having some time off. I've got a severance package. I didn't look around. And then after that, about a month and a half in, I thought, well, maybe I should start looking around. And there were two places that I was sort of really interested in. The first one was the Olympic Bid Committee, because that's when it was just starting to get happening. And the other one was SFU. Well, I went in on a Wednesday, closing date was Friday. 3 interviews later, I'm working on the Olympic bid on a small team of 135 people to bring one of the biggest projects to Canada. And for me, the reason, and this is the why piece, which your friend spoke about earlier, wasn't about money. It wasn't about notoriety. I just said that this is going to unify our country beyond anything I've ever experienced. And I want to be a part of this. Well, 3 interviews later, I got the job. I did my term there. We won the Olympic bid. And oh my gosh, what an amazing experience that was. Mm-hmm. I then said, okay, took 7 months off because, again, severance package and having this job. I thought, and I was fairly tired from working on the Olympic bid in a positive way, not tired of the job. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to apply at SFU. And I just remember my director of communications at the Olympic bid, she was called as a reference. And she basically told the people at SFU, you're going to have to hire this guy. He only wanted to work for us, and he only wants to work at SFU. He's just going to keep going until you give him a job. So just give him the job. And I've been at SFU now 16 plus years. But here's the thing that's really amazing about this. I left the corporate life about 22, 23 years ago. It's felt like 5 years because I've been able to do so many great things in that period of time that I have just thoroughly enjoyed. And I mean, technically right now, on paper, I work 1 day a week, technically. But in reality, I probably work 7 days a week, 100 hours, but none of it feels like work.
Yeah.
So that's the point where the realization of comfort and uncertainty and the fact that now I call myself a career cliff jumper. I'm not afraid because of the people around me, the situations I've encountered. I'm not worried about losing a job, but I'm not saying that with cockiness of like, I'm too good for this. It's just the fact that I think because we've established a really strong foundation, you have that confidence. But I mean, SFU has been a great place to work, and the Olympic bid was great. All the projects and initiatives, these are things that I really search for. And I think what I'd like to just bring up is this concept of goals versus intentions. Because I lived in the world of goals in the past, much like what you were talking about, get a job, get your master's and everything. Those are goals. What I realized is goals are very linear. And goals are very absolute. In other words, you have to lay out a plan 1, 2, maybe 3 or 5 years in advance. But if you don't know who you are, how can you lay out this linear pathway? What if an opportunity emerges that doesn't line up with your goal? Do you give up the goal or the opportunity? Instead, I live in the world of intentions, meaning I have these intentions. Those are the five core elements. And when an opportunity emerges, I compare it against those five things. So, writing is a prime example. Do you realize that 6, 7 years ago, I wasn't even remotely related to writing? And when I did my first TEDx speech, it sparked this interest in storytelling, and that's how the first book came about. But if it was a goal, I wouldn't be a writer today. Instead, I looked at it to those five things that are really important to me, and all of a sudden it made sense. And all of a sudden, I wound up pursuing writing. Now I have about 167 blog posts, 2 books. I'm writing a third book or co-authoring a third book now. But these are things I would never have imagined in the past. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I'm completely inspired by your story, because I feel like I just recently was in the same boat as you, and like I said, I had worked for the provincial health authority, and I had got my management position. I designed and developed and implemented a provincial program where I was flying across the province, and kind of had that life that I was like, oh, okay, so if you're on a plane every week, there's more value to you as an employee or a professional. And I had the attention of our senior executives and our board of directors. And then my boss said that in 6 months time, once this is implemented, you'll move into a director position. And it all sounded so great to me, and I had my own flexibility, set my own hours. But because I was on my own, I ended up working a lot of hours. And then there was a time where actually on my way home, I got into a car accident because I was so exhausted because I had just been running on this treadmill, and I had I just completely forgot about my health, my ability to relax, to look at other things. And at this time, I didn't have a child, so I had all the free time in the world to dedicate to work. But I was on my way home one evening, and I got into a car accident because I was just exhausted, and I had just zoned right out, and I was not paying attention. And it was nothing serious, but I just rear-ended somebody. But after that, I think that was the universe telling me that I need to slow down. I need to reevaluate my life. I need to reevaluate my priorities. And I realized at that time that my time is the most valuable thing to me. It's the only thing we can never get back, I think. We can never get our time back. So I said, okay, what am I going to do with this time? And because I've, from a young age, I've lived with this requirement for myself that because my family were refugees, we fled with, like what you hear in the stories and the movies, we fled overnight. We paid someone to traffic us out of Afghanistan into Pakistan, and then we came to Canada a year later. I was only a year old at this time. But I remember thinking from a young age, once I knew about that, I said, okay, I have to make sure that I don't waste any time in this life, because my life, if we had stayed in Afghanistan, either was probably cut short. I would have probably been dead by now, or I would, who knows what would have happened to me. I would not have lived a very great life. And, and I do have family back in Afghanistan right now, and I do compare, and I'd say, okay, I'm so grateful for my life. I'm so thankful for this opportunity. So, having that requirement, that's been my underlying why my whole life. So I had to, I thought I had I knew I made my family proud with this position, and all the notoriety that came with it, and the accolades, because it was the first program of its kind in BC. But after that accident, I thought to myself, I need to quit. This job is not fulfilling my requirements for myself, for who I am. And I remember telling my husband first, and he was like, he's always the proponent of being a rebel against what everybody else is doing, but do what you want. So he was very supportive. But when I told my parents and my grandparents, they thought I was crazy. And they said, you're never going to get this opportunity. Like, what do you mean you're going to quit? And I said, yeah, I'm going to quit. And, like you said, the question was, do you have another job? And I said, no, I'm going to quit and see what happens. And I remember the moment I made that decision, when I had said that I'm going to quit this job, everyone around me was kind of wondering, what was happening. My boss at the time was wondering if, she offered me a pay raise, and I said, no, it's not that. It's just, I need to leave because this is not accomplishing my goals for myself. And, I was lucky enough that I did end up getting a job offer before my last day of work there. But I remember, and I still think back to that now. And I think, there was a time where I had the pull, and I'm having that pull right now too, of, do I stay for the pension? Do I stay for the title? Do I stay for the trajectory, being able to move up in the company? Or, and stay for the security? Or do I leave and start something on my own with uncertainty? And that's where, I was struggling 2 years ago, and I'm kind of back there now that I've returned to work after maternity leave, and I'm doing the same thing. I'm thinking, what's next for me, and where do I need to go? And I think that, what you shared inspires me, because it, just gives me confidence to know that there is a life where you don't feel like you have to be working,
Right.
And even with this podcast and this platform, I work 40 hours a week during the week, and I do this afterwards on top of being a mom and trying to keep up with my fitness and all that. And, a lot of people say that's a lot of work. And, I always say to them, I say, yes, I'm going to live in a way that a lot of people will not live for a short period of time, so that I could live in the future in a way that a lot of people won't. And that kind of keeps me going. And hearing a story like yours inspires me, because I feel like I'm on that trajectory right now, and in that place, should I, shouldn't I? And be having that kind of dilemma.
Well, what I'll share with you, and you've touched upon it, is the fact that I'm all about analogies. And what I have is an hourglass, right? See, and the thing is, an hourglass is a vessel of time. Now, when I turn it this way, the grains of sand are going down below. If every grain of sand represents a day of my life, I can tell you how many grains are below me. In fact, when I did this, it was 21,003 grains of sand when I wrote this blog post. So 21,003 grains of sand sit below me, because that's how many days I've lived. But how many grains are above me? One, meaning tomorrow's my last day, 500, 5,000. We don't know what's above us, how many days. All I know is every morning I wake up, a single grain enters this narrow chamber, and throughout my day, the people I meet, like you, the things I get to do, the situations I encounter, adds richness to that one grain of sand. And at the end of the day, when I go to bed, it drops below. Over the last 20 some odd years, I've told myself I'm not going to waste a grain of sand, because once it's gone, it's spent. I can't. I mean, I sit in a coffee shop, and people next to you are talking about how much they either don't like their job, or they're talking about ill about someone, and they're not valuing that grain of sand. So instead, I always say that the world is full of problems, and I know what the problems are. I'm all about solutions, because at the end of the day, what I want is every single grain to be very rich, and I'm not going to waste a grain of sand. And this is how I've lived over the last 20, 25 years, is not wasting a grain of sand. And it doesn't mean that I live in a rainbow, unicorn, cotton candy clouded world. I'm a realist. But we all have a perspective on how we're going to deal with situations and how we're going to look at things. So that's why when something happens, and that could be a negative situation, I'm not dwelling on the negative side. I understand what the negative side is, but I'm not going to let it consume me. Instead, how do I move forward? How do I become resilient? I mean, and that's why I said, like, I don't look at it from a rosy colored lens that is artificial, because I've got two aging parents and they've got health issues. My sibling is 60 years old and he's got a severe case of Alzheimer's and under constant care. And I remember my father and I were talking, and he said, our our family used to be, the situation was always very happy, but we're not in a happy place right now. And I looked at him and I said, this is our new reality. So I have to I have to figure out and deal with what's been given to me. I can't change any of this, but I have to deal with it. And it's that resilience you bring in and build. So all the stuff I'm doing around me helps me to deal with the resilience of the situations that may not be so nice. So that's where it's a matter of the perspectives of how you look at it, and not to dwell on the negative, but instead on how you're going to deal with it, because I worry about those grains of sand. And at the end of it all, it's an autobiography worth reading is really what happens. So I like to share that as a result. Is I think if that helps you.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that everybody's unique and everyone's story is unique. And, me personally, everyone that's the closest to me and around me are people that have, I actually don't know if I know many people that have not had challenges in their life. And I actually had one friend, and we did this at SFU, you may know, the Semester in Dialogue, which is an intensive inner reflection program by Mark Winston, who's amazing. And I did that program, and that was, it was so different from any other class I had taken at SFU. And it was kind of the first time that I was able to be myself and showcase myself in my work at school. And so I had encouraged a friend of mine to do the same thing. And one of the first things really is, or one of the first things that you have to do is, like you said, you have to talk about yourself. What is your story? And she came back to me and said that she had some feedback on her essay and wasn't sure how to move forward. And the feedback was, what are the challenges you've had in your life? And she said, well, I've never had challenges. I never had a difficult childhood. I don't have some sad story. I don't have any of that. And I said to her, that's not the definition of a challenge. It's not a sad story. It's not that you have to have gone through something very big in order to have a story of how you overcame something, and I kind of was telling her and asking those questions, like you said. I said, what's something difficult that you've had to do, or what's something that you've had to manage? And she finally told me that, her dad still works and lives in Iran, and she lives with her mom and sister in Vancouver. And I said, okay, so what is that dynamic, and how have you learned to live through that? And then she finally realized that is the part of her story that she never thought was, a part of her story. She had never framed it that way because it had just become ingrained in her and how she was dealing with it. And I think that like you said, I said, being able to look at your life and figuring out, okay, what is the learnings here? How am I going to move forward with this? And what am I going to do? I think it's key to being able to get out of that hamster wheel of, saying, it's like the boy who cried wolf, and getting out of that hamster wheel of always feeling bad for yourself. And I just actually finished the Magic Practice by Rhonda Byrne, I don't know if you've ever done that 28 days, but she talks about being grateful for, and one of the practices actually is take a mistake that you've done, something that's, been very challenging, that's gone wrong for you, and take that mistake or that challenge or that experience and write 10 things that you're grateful for that experience. And it was amazing because I thought, okay, this is a mistake. This is not something that didn't go well for me, but why was I grateful for that to happen? And, you're grateful because you learned from that mistake is the biggest one. So I completely agree with what you have to say.
No, and to be fair, there may be people listening that are like, but I like comfort, and I want to be in the company for 30, 35 years and have the pension and all of that. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think we're speaking to uh, an awakening of some people who are in that it may not fit them. So I just wanted to clarify that it's also important to appreciate or say that there's nothing wrong if you feel you want to be in that situation where you like the comfort and 9 to 5. My wife is like that. Like, she loves the stability of Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. Get dressed up, you go and do your job, and you meet people and whatnot, and then you come home. And she's told that's her life, and that's what she really loves. So I will always say for her, if you want me to go back to corporate, you better take an insurance policy on my life, because I will die. So in that realm, we are totally different in that, and I have to appreciate and respect it, which I do. So it's also important for the people that are listening that it's okay to have that stability and comfort if that's what you really enjoy. But you have to really enjoy that stability and comfort.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, in connecting with yourself and learning about your non negotiables, I think that you know that may mean that your time outside of work is very important to you for your soul. So my sister, like you said, my sister is like that. She has been in this same company for 10 years and she's only 30. So she, right out of university, had a job, worked up in the company. She's been there for 10 years, and to me, I'm just like, that would have never worked for me. I can't be in the same company for more than 3 years, or the same position for more than 3 years, just because I need to grow. I need to move forward. But she loves what she's done and she loves the work that she's doing. Just now she's starting to think of moving on, but before that she just loved it, and that was amazing too, because she knew that was the place for her for that life, and I think that's great. And so what in if somebody is, may not necessarily be thinking of jumping ships from their job to working for themselves or in another company, or just people that are looking to stay in the same role but connect with them deeper, what are some pieces of advice you would give to people to get them started in thinking about how can I connect with myself to understand what my values are and what my elements are in life?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is that self-reflection piece. And my first TEDx speech was discovering the extraordinary in the ordinary. We live in the ordinary, but embedded in the ordinary are these tremendously extraordinary experiences when we open our eyes to it. And the five things, I'm all about five, but the five things that sort of guide us for storytelling or discovering that extraordinary in the ordinary is curiosity, appreciation, reflection, perspective, and experience. And I can take anything, as I shown with the letters or the hourglass, and I've got something else I will share with you to add purpose and meaning to it. So curiosity stops me, and I sort of see it as something else. Uh, Appreciation is appreciating things, people for more than what they are, and reflecting on it to add purpose and meaning to it. Perspectives means because of what you bring as an individual, we all have perspectives, and experience is locking it into a story. So it's carpet: curiosity, appreciation, reflection, perspective, and experience. And I guess what I want to share with you is I carry with me puzzle pieces. So there's a puzzle piece right there. And the reason I do this is there's two analogies I'll share with you. One directly affects that whole concept of, you know, how do I find myself in all of this and move forward. Oftentimes when I teach my class or when I meet people, I've given about 5,000 pieces in the world to date. But what I say is, if I was to give you the single piece of a jigsaw puzzle, what can you do with one piece? Not much. So it's ordinary. So part of what I would say is everybody that I interact with is trying to solve their life puzzle. They want to know what the picture is. So if I came and dumped a 5,000 piece jigsaw puzzle on your table, but I left with the cover, what are you building? You don't know, because I've taken the cover away. So think of it from the standpoint of, if you've got 5,000 pieces, what a lot of people want to do is take 5,000 pieces and they want to throw it up in the air, and hopefully when it lands and bounces into place, everything, your life is before you. It's all completed. Well, we know that life and puzzles don't work that way. You're going to have to build your puzzle piece by piece, section by section. Well, with puzzles, what you do is you sift through it. Maybe you find a piece of a chimney, door, and a window, and you're like, I think there's a house here. So now you start pulling what's familiar, that house, without paying attention to anything else. And you start building the house. Maybe halfway through building the house, you suddenly turn a piece over and you find, well, wait, that's a porthole, and that's a mast of a ship, and I think that's part of the bow. So the house isn't done, and you start building a ship. And halfway through building the ship, you start building a car. So our life is in segments and sections, but there's really not an semblance of order. So instead of I always say, instead of trying to solve your life puzzle, instead what I say is, this single piece that I give Instead, I want you to start finding the people, the situations, and experiences that connects sections of our puzzle together. Because oftentimes we have these segments and sections, but when you're building a puzzle and you find that one piece and you're like, actually, that connects two sections together, now it starts to make more sense. So I want people to go through life looking for and not solving their life puzzle, but start looking for the people and those situations and experiences that start connecting and making sense of their world. The other analogy, which I think is really important, especially during COVID-19, is this is what people feel like. They feel like a single piece of a jigsaw puzzle. They don't know where they fit in, they don't know how they fit in. And the idea is it's ordinary. And I magically transform it before their eyes into something that's extraordinary. And I've actually seen physical transformations in the face when I share this with them, because I say, you're so focused on this is what you are and who you are. Instead, I want you to focus on a satchel. This is where I hold my puzzle pieces. Do you realize that if I give you a piece of my puzzle, do you realize my puzzle will now be permanently incomplete without you? I can't finish it. Do you realize how important you are to me now? And I need you to be a part of my puzzle so that it can be completed. And that's where I see this transformation. And what I value and love about this is I've heard back from people years later. It's taped to their mirror. And they say, it reminds me someone told me I'm valuable and that I matter. It's in curio boxes. It's in wallets. They see me at events and they pull it out of their wallet saying, look, I still hold on to your puzzle piece. It's a simple idea that I think, again, adds so much value, is the fact that whoever's watching this podcast and listening is you are part of something bigger. So don't live small and don't think of yourself as that singular piece of a jigsaw puzzle. But there are people who are part of your puzzle, who are there to guide and support you. And the fact is, we all need each other to help us as individuals to get where we need to go. And I've relied on the voices of other people, not the noise, but the voices of other people to support me, because they're not telling me what to do, but they're there to guide and support. So it's all about the puzzle analogy and remembering that you are part of something bigger.
Yeah, I love that. And you must, you must love when people pull out that puzzle piece and they say that you've had that impact and that they are a part of your puzzle. And I think that is an amazing analogy. And I love that, you can carry that around with you and know that you're, a piece of a bigger puzzle, a bigger piece, and you're invaluable. And without you, it can't be completed. And I love that. And I think that, it resonates with me so well, because it just teaches you that you are so valuable in this world and there's so much you can offer and only you can offer that. And, I know a lot of people that say to me that I don't really know what I could offer. Everybody's doing this or everybody's doing that. There's enough of these people and those people. And I always say, but there's no one like you. Exactly. You're the only one. So, believe in yourself, believe that you can do this and that you are able to do this. And it's kind of amazing because you see the ripple effect when you start believing in yourself. And, and when I started this platform, I actually didn't tell my family and my friends until I did it. Probably because of my own fear of, I don't know if I am going to do this. And I don't want to tell people I'm going to do it and then not do it. But B, I just wanted for them to organically find it and let me know what they think. And it's amazing because once I did that, I've had people connect with me and tell me things that, I've known them for a long time. They've never told me that at all. And my sister, for example, is a very private person. She doesn't speak of her, her thoughts, her feelings very openly with anyone, I think. But then she's connected with me, told me, on my birthday, I think I shared a story on Instagram about how, prior to doing this work, I always felt a lot of pressure around my birthday to host a party for everybody. Who am I going to invite? Are they going to have fun? And it was more about other people attending my birthday. And there was this expectation that I felt for hosting this. And with COVID-19 and also doing this work, I realized I can actually, this year I realized I could do what I want for my birthday. I don't have any expectations because even if I had a party, I can't invite anybody. But for the first time, I realized that I'm okay, to spend some time just with a few people that are really close to me and just take time to reflect. And I had the best birthday ever this year because I let go of that expectation and I focused on myself and what I wanted to do for myself. And my sister, who was born a year and 4 days after me, so our birthdays are only 4 days apart, she, you know, has a larger expectation than I do of her birthday and what to do and whatnot. And she always has 3 to 4 day parties, or it spans the whole month. And she actually told me, she said, "You know what? After I saw your story, I tried I I tried to do that too this year for my birthday, and I realized I actually had a lot of fun." And, for her, COVID-19 and the lockdown actually was an amazing thing because it let her slow down. And she's one of these people that does not slow down. And I feel like for the first time, she's starting to listen to herself and her soul, and she is starting to open up. And I love it because I just feel that, if I can inspire her through these stories, and everybody can inspire her, and yourself, you've inspired 5,000 and more people. But it's amazing to see these ripple effects, and collectively, we're all better for it.
No, and I think, and you said this, but when I wrote my first book, right in the very beginning, prior to all of the concepts and ideas on personal storytelling, there's a quote that I put down that I made up, which was, and it's a real quote that I lived, which was, "There's fear in me writing this book because of what people may think. The bigger fear, what if I don't do this?"
Yeah.
So that was so important to me. And the first line basically in the book says, what's the last story you read? What's the last story you told? What's the last story that you lived? And the living part, that's the one that people don't capture. You can read it, you can tell it, but what's the last story you lived? And it doesn't have to be this epic, like my second book, which was about my journey to find my ancestral roots with just a photograph, very little information, and not being from India. But it can be, somebody who's overcome cancer. That's your adventure, and that's your story. It's powerful. Or somebody who may have gone through a divorce, or graduating from post-secondary institution, and the challenges. That's all an autobiography and a journey that needs to be shared.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's amazing. I love that. And as you were saying that, I was like, okay, I know the story and I know the last story you've told. And you're like, what's the last story that you've lived? That stopped me because I was like, oh, I don't actually know. And I think that's, just resonates with everything you've shared about just connecting with yourself and living your story and knowing what that story is, and focus on yourself. And I think that, and I do actually think that this time where we've had to slow down is a blessing in disguise, in allowing a large majority of people to just take some time for reflection, take some time to go back to doing those things that brought you joy. And I actually, since May, have spent now 3 months almost looking for a bicycle because, I have time so I can go on a bicycle ride, and I wanted to get a trailer for my daughter. But there's no bicycles anywhere, and there's no trailers anywhere. And part of that is because, the manufacturers had closed down as well. But the other part is that people reconnected with this activity that brought them joy. And so I see so many people out running and exercising and going for bicycle rides and rollerblading and everything. And it's because we're moving back to that time now where we're making time for that, making time for leisure and activity.
Well, and I wrote a post on my website, but also on LinkedIn, and I just said that due to COVID-19, there is a need to care. Now, as you can tell, I do a lot of acronyms, but CARE stands for collaboration. So there is such a need for us to collaborate with each other. You can't do it by yourself. A is adaptability. You have to be changing on the fly with whatever's happening in the environment right now, which we've never encountered. We have to be adaptable. R is resilience, meaning we know that this is a marathon. It's not going to be over in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It's a marathon. So build that resilience in. And the last one, which I think is extremely important, is empathy, which is the E. We need to show care and compassion to the people around us. So it's collaboration, it's about adaptability, resilience, and empathy. And that's how I've been able to work my way through COVID because of this. And that's what I share with people is we have to care and using that methodology.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's so true. And I work in public health, and I am working on the COVID-19 response actually right now. And when I go to work and I hear, the background of what's going on, and then I come out of that, and then my family and my friends ask me, okay, so what's the plan? Should I book this trip? Should I do this? Should I do that? And I just look at them and I say, just live your life today. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And it all depends on how we as a collective work, and what do we do collectively that will impact how quickly we can move from this pandemic, or how long we have to stay in the pandemic. And I think that this is a great, the pandemic is a great analogy for actually how collectively we can work together to get through something. And if you work as an individual in this instance, it's not going to work. You actually would be doing more harm to the collective.
Yeah.
And good. And I think that I think, and I hope actually that a lot of people have gotten to this place now where we can slow down and understand and really work through this together. We have, we're able to do this together.
Oh, and I think what's also, as I mentioned very before this podcast and whatnot, is the fact that, I mean, people may be wondering, like, look at his background. He's, where is he? And but the reason is I could have found a nice background, but it would have been a bit more difficult because my house is under renovations right now. But the other thought is, but this is what I would say the renovations is very reflective of me because I'm ever changing, and there are things that need to be fixed, and there are gaps and holes, and I'm not going to hide behind what's going on, and that this is a reality, and so this is part of the reason why people may be wondering, what's this behind him? I just chose to say, you know what, this is very reflective of what my life is ever changing, ever building, ever evolving. I'm not going to hide and say, with a background that's beautiful, to say, here's what my life is. I think this is very reflective of that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. And I absolutely love everything you've shared. And it's such an inspiration to hear your story of how you've committed to yourself and taking this small daily actions every single day to really live your purpose and live what you define as your non-negotiables and the life that you want, and created this life that you wish existed for yourself. And, I will wrap up the conversation by just asking a key question. Life gets challenging. It gets hard for all of us. So when life gets tough, or you start questioning what is going on in life, how do you self-reflect and maintain that positive mindset? How do you actually work through and align yourself back to your 5 elements and what you're doing in this life?
Yep. I think part of it is because if you've established a solid base to work from, anything that penetrates or comes towards you, you're standing your ground because you have a very firm understanding of who you are. The other part that layers into that is that whole hourglass analogy, is this understanding that I have a choice to make today. I can let whatever happens destroy me or ruin me or negatively impact me, or I can choose to handle it in a different way that I think would be more constructive. And I choose to reflect on it in that regard, is I am not going to let anyone or any situation dictate how I'm going to react to it. That's my choice. But I think if you build that solid base to work from, whether it's the 5 core elements or something that helps you, or a mentor or a coach that you have, somebody who's there to support you along the way, I think that that's how you can build that resilience in, because there is a need in making sure that you, number one, look after yourself, look after the people around you. Because I always use the analogy of when you're in an airplane and that mask drops, they always say put the mask on yourself first. Because if you can't look after yourself first, you can't help the people around you. So I have to be strong. I have to be confident in where and who I am. And it's up to the people to decide if I'm worthy. And I always say this, and I sort of share this and leave this with you as well, is the fact that oftentimes there's people seeking this title of leadership. I don't seek the title of leadership. Leadership is not a place to be. Leadership is a lifestyle. And whoever you are as an individual, there are people that will give you the title and you are worthy of that title and you will be followed. And others who will not. So all combined, I think it's try not to seek out the notoriety and the status. Be authentic and true to yourself. Appreciate what you bring to the world because that's what really matters. And even in that small world, I always say, instead of trying to change the world through your eyes, change the world through the eyes of the people you support and help. Because if they see the world differently, you have changed the world, but not through your eyes.
Yeah.
So I leave you with that.
Yeah, I think that's amazing, and I love that quote, and I love that analogy that you do. What you do does, it does move beyond you, and you do, and in the magic, she actually says you sprinkle your magic dust on people, and you as you go around, you start sprinkling, and you leave magic on people, and I think that is amazing, and I think that working towards your own goals, you're helping other people work towards theirs, and I think that that's inspiring. And I absolutely loved having you on. I love everything you share, and I will share Sam's website and LinkedIn and social media handles on the blog post and link show notes, as well as on YouTube and on the Spotify platform and Apple Podcasts as well. So thank you so much for spending time with me today and sharing your story and being such a source of inspiration for me and for everybody listening today.
And thank you for what you're doing because you are supporting change and helping people as well. So I appreciate that. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for listening to the end of that episode. I hope that you're so inspired and so motivated and encouraged by the story that Sam has shared. And I know that I absolutely loved connecting with him and had the honor of having him on this podcast. And I'm so excited for you to connect with him, to follow him along on his Instagram at Sam Thiara, Thiar. And I'm so excited for you to learn about all the amazing things that he's doing. You can connect with him on his website, which I'll link on the show notes. And if you have any questions, you can connect with me and let me know, and I can pass it on to him as well. If you could like and subscribe to us on YouTube, that would be amazing. And if you could follow us and like us on all social media accounts to help us grow, to continue to share such inspiring stories with you of people in your community that are doing amazing things. And with that, if you have anybody that you would like to nominate to share their story and who you're inspired by and want to know how they learned to do that, please send me an email, info@howdidyoulearntodo that, and let me know. And in the meantime, I would love for you to take time to connect with yourself this week. I would love for you to continue to work towards your goals, because remember, your life is yours and you have the ability to actually catalyze that from ordinary to extraordinary. But it all starts with you. It starts with you making that commitment to yourself and making sure that you are achieving your goals and making yourself a priority. Okay, so we'll see you next week for another great episode. Bye.